The recording is in progress.
All right, thank you so much, Andrew. So as always, we do start this today. We are in week 56 of the IGU Summit, the Indigenous Global Unity Summit. So we acknowledge those who came before us on this land. The land acknowledgement starts with this. So we begin today by acknowledging that we walk upon the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples, and we recognize their history, spirituality, culture, and stewardship of the land. We're grateful to all Indigenous groups for their commitment to protect the land and its resources, and we are committed to reconciliation, partnership, and enhanced understanding. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on here in the Greater Toronto Area is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, and is now home to many diverse peoples. We'd also like to acknowledge the land we're on is at the meeting place of two treaties, the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and those of the First Nations of the Williams Treaty. We thank them and other Indigenous peoples for sharing this land with us. We also acknowledge and recognize all of the world's Indigenous peoples as stewards of Mother Earth. So I wanted to say what the events were coming up. I didn't have time this morning, but I will mention that today, June 30th, 2022, is also International Day of Parliamentarism. The International Day of Parliamentarism is celebrated every year on June 30th, the date in 1889 on which the International Parliamentary Union was founded. So the day was established in 2018 through a UN General Assembly resolution. So again, I will put this information into the chat. So there are a few links there for people to follow and learn about this day, including for the Interparliamentary Union, which has its offices in Geneva. So this month of June is also International Children's Month. The International Children's Month this year has a theme of grace and resilience. And so the idea is that we want to explore through story, through the heart and through the lens of peace. And so the idea is to move forward in beautiful and uplifting partnerships as we are building this network. As well, again, I mentioned that National Indigenous History Month here in Canada for all of June 2022, which commemorates the heritage, diverse cultures, and understanding achievements of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis here in Canada, where the history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and their contributions to the War of 1812, reconciliation, and much more. As I noted last week, my colleague Michael Scher from the Indigenous Global Unity Network wrote to me that the Indigenous Peoples Day was actually started in the USA to replace Columbus Day on Monday, October 10th. So the Assembly of First Nations here in Canada, the AFN, and the Government of Canada did make a big mistake changing the original Aboriginal Day to National Indigenous Peoples Day in Canada. So he wrote that it actually shows a lack of support and interest to unite natives in the USA and Canada, and is a political trickery attempt to tarnish the original Indigenous Peoples Day. And he suggested that they could have changed the name to National Indigenous Day. So I am the administrator for the Indigenous Peoples Day page and claimed the main Facebook URL 10 years ago. And these are the words, of course, of Michael Scher. A few Native celebrities, one a correspondent for CNN, all edit the page as well. He says his concern is real. He wants us to know that soon the USA and Canadian natives will likely butt heads over this. I already talked to my team, he says, in the USA, because they all know I run the page, and the Canadian government and the AFN wish they had control over the URL. But he said, too bad it's in the right hands right now. 1992 marked the 500th anniversary of Columbus' arrival in the Americas in October 1492. Indigenous Peoples Day was established in 1992 in Berkeley, California, to coincide with that 1492 anniversary. So 2 years later, Santa Cruz, California instituted the holiday legally. So he was sending an old article from last year, and an important one for the history books, to us here at Indigenous Unity. Indigenous Peoples Day has been established internationally. You can go to the Indigenous Peoples Day site, to the About section, and learn about the current cities and states in the USA that have adopted Indigenous Peoples Day, which was passed in many courts to replace Columbus Day. For those interested, I am sharing a Wikipedia page and a list of states that have adopted Indigenous Peoples Day to replace Columbus Day. So there are a few cities and states mentioned in the main Facebook page. Hopefully soon these cities and states will be included in the Wikipedia timeline. History and education matter, so does positive social change. So again, I am putting the links in the chat for the sites that Michael Schur had sent me, so that everybody has that information as well. So I noted as well, Michael said last week, this is an extremely important story that needs to get out into the public realm. And we want to consider to do an IGU Summit special event on this subject, together with our counterparts in the United States, especially California, and in Africa, as well as globally in all of the countries of the Global Unity Network. So the schedule for this special day for Thursday, October 6th, which is 6 days before Wednesday, October 12th, 30 years after the Berkeley, California established Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm suggesting we invite the city of Berkeley and all of their local institutions, including the university and all the corporations, to also plant a tree of peace and reconciliation and raise an Indigenous unity flag in solidarity with all of the other communities around the world, including local communities here in Canada who are doing the same. So we would like the planting of the trees and raising of the flags, especially these, as we establish these local INAP collaboratives and the empowerment networks for the local FFHE in support of the globalization of the global goals and the practical implementation of the local solutions for achieving what we call a productive, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind as we move forward toward the next iteration of the global goals, what we hope are called the regenerative development goals. So the decision to have a different Indigenous Peoples Day aside from National Indigenous History Month here in Canada seems to be coming back to the old divide and conquer mentality of the colonial mindset, which is a continued deliberate action to divide people into us and them. So it's actually the same mentality we're trying to overcome within the communities of the Global Unity Network. One page that I really want to start activating locally here in Markham with the people and all our relations who live in the Don and Rouge watersheds where I live, ahead of the Markham Tree of Peace and Reconciliation tree planting and Indigenous Unity flag raising ceremonies in 2023, is the Drawdown Markham Youth Task Force page, which will be used to help establish a local committee for global action on achieving a productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. So again, I put into the chat information about that local network, which we are trying to build. I do want to mention at the beginning here that we shouldn't forget our 2022 AHIABGA UnityNet Abraham Project tree planting that happened earlier this month. Our globally coordinated event took place on Sunday, June 5th, including here in the Greater Toronto area. We did two tree planting events in Mississauga. The first at Meadowood Park with the support of the city of Mississauga, who donated 10 trees and 5 different species. The second one at the Continental Dance Club with the support of their owner, Brian Torner, who is a world champion trainer, choreographer, 15-time world championship adjudicator, and championship ballroom dancer. So again, I put into the chat the links to those events. So I wanted to mention as well the flag and Indigenous unity and the unity of humanity is far more important than our individual lives and the machinations of political leaders who just don't get it, because most people don't understand it yet, that God, Mother Nature, or however you define it, loves us all and all things on earth equally. So we are beginning already to start preparing for next year's June 5th, 2023 World Environment Day planting here in the city of Markham. I've been working with my city councillor, Issa Lee, whom we'll be talking to again, hopefully soon. I'm glad to see Lowell on the call. We'll also work with our counterparts in Africa and of course in the USA, in California and New York, and elsewhere, such as EdFood Foundation and African Coaches League and Cash Community Development, which is a Native American owned and managed 501c3 nonprofit. They are there to address the financial needs of natives throughout the United States, including Alaska and Hawaii, to really make sure that for every tree of peace and reconciliation we are planting in the world, that we have a commemorative plaque and a flagpole erected beside the trees, that we have an Indigenous unity flag raising ceremony at the time of the planting, along with a pledge of allegiance from the members of the local INAP collaboratives to empower the local humanitarian entrepreneurs who are implementing the local solutions to achieving the global goals locally, so that the place where the flag and the tree are planted become these sacred spaces in all of our communities and symbols of peace, reconciliation, forgiveness, compassion, collaboration, and regeneration. And the people involved in the planting ceremonies should be signing these commitments to leave no one behind in their own local communities, ensuring that they pledge and commit to support us in all of our local communities as we move forward together in support of the decolonization and re-indigenization of our minds and our physical spaces in lockstep with all of the Indigenous peoples of the world. We also did our third tea diplomacy initiative on Saturday, June 18th. So not too long ago, that was Sustainable Gastronomy Day. I do want to put that link into the chat for people to find more information about that as well. Our most recent tea diplomacy event on Saturday, May 21st. Before that was International Tea Day and the World Day for Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development. I will put that into the chat as well as the third one that we did on the World Day for Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development. So I will now start sharing my screen, or I haven't seen the participants on the call. Sometimes we like to bring our guest speaker on first, depending on whether he's here or not with us. Does anybody know if we have our guest speaker on?
I don't see the person named in the, I don't see that person named in the in our meeting.
Yeah, okay. So I will then move on with my own presentation first, and if somebody wishes to notify me as they do come on. Thank you, Andrew. So again, I will move forward. I just need to share the screen. Hold on a second. Share screen. Just let me, if you know, to let me know that you see this.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Okay, so as always, I do start the presentation by giving recognition to our supporters and sponsors, in particular Andrew Networks, what we call the door opening network of the Global Unity Network. We call it UnityNet. during these Thursday Zoom calls, where we're committed to take place through December 2023. So Andrew Networks also rebroadcasting production-ready episodes on the AHIABGA.org domain, being redirected to the UCIT-TV site. You'll also notice our logo indicates that this is 21 to 23 IGU Summit event. We do plan on continuing to deliver these Thursday events until the end of 2023 in alignment with the UN Global Compact 21 to 23 vision and strategy. Again, in the chat are links to Andrew Networks, or sorry, the UN Global Compact. So on this page, you do see logos for Maui Aloha Project, 5 Points Youth Foundation, the AHIABGA International Advisory Board, Future Lift Foundation, Global Peace Let's Talk, the American International Education Federation, the EdFu Foundation, the Conservancy Trust, the Saga Foundation, the LA Global Foundation, as well as our own logos for the Tree of Peace and Reconciliation, the Greater Unity Network, the Indigenous Unity Flag, the Unity 4K Clubs, and the HAPTA Matrix Partnership Template of UnityNet International, plus a few others as well. Again, in the chat, I put some information and links for people to follow. Just give me a sec before I go on to the next page. So I want to mention our sponsors, Andrew Networks, that donates our hosting and promotional support services. Andrew Networks being a brand and domain name owned by Parks DC Export Trading Company, comprising the various social media channels, including TRN TV, the Universal Citizens Media Networks, Conversations with Andrew Williams Jr., and many more. Andrew Networks is our primary sponsor, supporting the promotional ecosystem for this UnityNet initiative, the Indigenous Global Unity Summit, which will continue again through December 2023. So Andrew is, as we call him, our Yes, Yes, Yes partner, helping to open doors so that members of our network are able to discover their inner selves and passions, and where Andrew Networks is working with the people who occupy the various nodes of our global unity network so they can come together with the people of the network, acting like a net to support the dreams of our members, so they can also leverage those passions and transform their visions of a better future for themselves and for their communities into a reality that makes sense for both themselves and their communities, however they might define that better future is collectively, as they seek to work together in partnership and leave no one behind. Again, in the chat, it's the links to Andrew Networks. So Andrew also founded the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors, Advocates, and Activists in September 2019. With a focus on localizing the Sustainable Development Goals during this decade of action and delivery of the SDGs from 2020 to 2030. Andrew did appoint me as a representative for Canada, La Francophonie, and the Commonwealth of Nations, originally published in January 2020. I was later appointed as a representative for Turtle Island in early 2021. Again, in the chat, you will see a link to the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors. But again, before I get too far, I am Lloyd Halfordy, the Chief Ecosystem Director, Program Development Director, and a Sustainable Society Consultant for Energym University, which is headquartered in Manhattan, New York, in the US. I am, however, located in the city of Markham in the Don River watershed, German Mills Creek subwatershed, which drains into Lake Ontario, the lowest and last of the North American Great Lakes, in the Greater Toronto Area in Southern Ontario, Canada, in North America, what we call Turtle Island. So Energym University is a private 501(c)(3) nonprofit company in New York, a member of the UN Global Compact, a UN academic impact member and partner. Energym U is a virtual university, was created to help empower global populations to reestablish a sustainable balance with their local environments. Energym does this by designing and implementing projects that support a strong and diversified local economy while integrating core sustainable technologies and infrastructure into the local communities in the areas of renewable energy, high-density food growth solutions, along with systems for sustainably managing local waste streams and protecting local water resources. So Energyme is supported by over 375 companies whose products and technologies we employ. Importantly, Energyme University also supports local education and training in the construction, deployment, and maintenance of all of the various integrated solutions for achieving closed-loop systems that in turn support self-sufficient, sustainable communities. Again, in the chat are my details if you wish to contact me. So I'm also the co-founder and administrator of the We Energyme Global Cooperation Turtle Island International Civil Society organization that is seeking to undertake what we call life value peace education in the context of life learning gardens. And so in the chat, you'll find the link you see on the screen. As mentioned, I am also designated as the Goodwill Ambassador for the 5 Points Youth Foundation in Los Angeles, with the portfolio that covers Canada, La Francophonie, the Commonwealth of Nations, and Turtle Islands communities. As a member of the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors and Activists, we're seeking to empower our communities to engage with royal, Indigenous, and tribal leadership, as well as helping local communities establish interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaboratives that will come together and pledge to support all of the local humanitarian entrepreneurs who are localizing the global goals, starting with the Sustainable Development Goals, while also seeking ways to leave no one behind. So again, in the chat are the links, the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors. So I am the co-founder of the Global Unity Network, or UnityNet, which is being established by UnityNet International, which helped to create UnityNet Africa and Diaspora and all of the other global groups in Asia and Americas and Europe. The Global Unity Business Group originally came together as a coalition of small businesses in order to establish, manage, and grow this Global Unity Network, now referred mostly as UnityNet. As a result of the original Global Unity Business Group, which I'd been describing as a humanitarian enterprise and global sustainable and regenerative development corporation, supporting and promoting the local delivery of open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure set up as life learning gardens, along with a hybrid virtual learning platform that we call the VCN, or the Interchange for Peace. It is now being rebranded as UnityNet International, in alignment with our first continental chapter, which is UnityNet Africa and Diaspora. So while the original Global Unity Business Group was created in order to formalize the AHIABGA process of localization of the global goals, starting with the SDGs, which is being done by the establishment of the Global Unity Network, which includes the Unity Gardens and the Unity Learning Networks, along with many other dedicated UnityNet nodes and chapters, which are, of course, all important components of our network of networks. The latest way I'd like to describe who we are is as a network of people and organizations supporting the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board process of globalization of the global goals, currently the SDGs, and the global transition to what we call a productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. Essentially, we're creating a global empowerment network of professionals in regenerative development to support all of the members, including our female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs, who are helping to implement the various local regenerative climate smart solutions that are required to achieve a productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. So humanitarian entrepreneurship is defined as a social enterprise that focuses on the delivery of various solutions for achieving a sustainable development, the sustainable development goals, I should say, or the global goals locally. UnityNet is establishing the hybrid infrastructure for delivering learning programs, the education and training that provides the local humanitarian entrepreneurs with the knowledge, the tools, the skills, and the processes that they need to help implement the sustainable development goals locally within their own local communities, with the goal, again, of leaving no one behind. It is important to note, again, that the existing social media, our WhatsApp, our Facebook, our LinkedIn groups that we're using right now are being used as a placeholder as we build the global network, prepare to launch, and where we'll eventually get all the people, the companies, the nodes of our network onto this Interchange for Peace VCN, where there will be able to gain access to the many tools and services that are available there, where they can much more easily collaborate in order to locally implement all of the globally coordinated real-world events and projects and enterprises and infrastructure. So again, in the chat are links to the Global Unity Business Group, we now call UnityNet International. So the Global Unity Network, UnityNet, was also created to showcase global cooperation for the implementation of the local regenerative solutions for achieving the global goals, starting with those 17 SDGs. So our goal is to help uplift the traditionally marginalized communities that are mostly being left behind because the existing economic paradigm is focused on making money for those who are already wealthy by extracting resources through the exploitation, usually the overexploitation of people and the natural world. And therefore, the majority of people on Earth are mostly being ignored by our existing highly competitive economy. So our focus is on the billions of people who exist or subsist on the economic sidelines, where we intend to start our work by helping local communities deliver these various local regenerative and climate smart enterprise solutions that people and communities in some of the least developed countries, communities, and local economies require in order to thrive. So as an entry point, we are focused in particular on those communities that are the most food insecure. Again, in the chat or some of our social media. So UnityNet is promoting the delivery of a suite of practical solutions for achieving the global goals, starting with the Sustainable Development Goals during this SDG period until 2030. We are focused on using the tools of humanitarian entrepreneurship, focusing again on the female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs and enterprises, or FFAG, along with using a hybrid virtual and hands-on education, training and learning programs and platforms and curricula with a primary focus on delivery of the various humanitarian entrepreneurship skills training in the practical settings. In other words, practical learning, along with leveraging the various open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure solutions to remotely assist local INAB collaborative teams to establish the local collaborative open source Unity Garden classrooms in all of the local communities around the world. So the Unity Garden classrooms are set up in collaboration with existing schools in local communities and can be used for the local and remote and virtual delivery of the practical learning programs in all of our INAB collaboratives for those FFHE members. So they can learn how to grow, process, cook, market, sell, and trade the various types of regenerative climate smart food and related nutritional and medicinal and other types of locally produced regenerative products, both within their own local communities as well as regionally, nationally, continentally, and internationally, in order to produce income and greater prosperity for themselves and for the people in their own local communities and for all the people on all continents. Again, with the intention and goal of leaving no one behind. In the chat, I leave a link to the Smart Cities Network of UnityNet as well. So we are also promoting through our virtual social marketing all of the members of our network. We use the various practical social media networking and trade tools, including those of the modern fourth industrial revolution. We're combining as well with the wisdom of crowds and the deep Indigenous knowledge of our ancestors and the living Indigenous people of this earth in order to learn from each other about how to share the abundance of this planet in order to create productive, regenerative, climate smart landscapes wherever we may live in and around each and all of our local communities. So our intention is also to help restore nature and biodiversity, to ensure abundance for all, and ultimately to restore the human connection to Mother Earth as proper stewards of our one and only beautiful planet. And again, here I put in the link to the Unity Biodiversity Network. So the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board process of localization of the global goals is intended to help everyone in each of their own local communities establish the local teams of humanitarian entrepreneurs, as well as the local community empowerment networks, the INAB collaboratives, that will provide support and ensure the success of the local cooperative humanitarian enterprises who are building the Unity Gardens. So the Unity Gardens are intended to be established in each local community across the global network, most likely starting in Africa, but also here in North America and in Asia as well. So the process of establishing the local INAB collaboratives is done by taking part in the Abraham project, like the one we did earlier this year, where we planted the tree of peace and reconciliation and did ceremonies starting on Sunday, June 5th, World Environment Day, but continuing this process throughout the planting seasons locally, wherever we are. So some communities will also establish twin trees of peace and reconciliation and twinned unity gardens. The twinning, or what we call trinning or quadrinning or more, will be done through what we call the CTP program, which is a process of twinning the local community unity garden humanitarian enterprises, and also twinning the local community INAB collaboratives. So what we're building here is a global network of local INAB collaboratives, where all of the members in each local community empowerment network are interconnected and watching over and talking to each other at the global level. So each local INAB collaborative has a diverse set of members from 7 different sectors of every community: the public, the private, civil society, academic, interfaith, finance, and orange economy, or the creative sector. We will also be watching and promoting and helping each other, supporting the local female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs in each of the local communities, who will be empowered by all of the members of the Global Unity Network, where all of the activities are also intended to be transparent, and all members of the global network, including all members of the local INAB collaboratives, will also be accountable to and for the success of the local collaborative Unity Garden humanitarian enterprise in each of their own local communities. So this means that if the local female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs who are living in the local community fail to be successful as they build and run their local collaborative or cooperative community Unity Garden humanitarian enterprise, their business, provided they're fully dedicated to making it successful for all the members of the community, and especially for those who are most marginalized in each of our local communities. It will not be entirely on their own shoulders alone, barring, of course, unforeseen circumstances, like the insurance industry and lawyers like to call it acts of God, but rather such failure could also at least partly be put on the shoulders of the local community INAB collaborative members for not having lived up to their obligations to support and empower the local community humanitarian entrepreneurs who would be building, operating, maintaining, and delivering all the various community programs and events and interventions, the goods and services that would be delivered in the context of their local community Unity Garden humanitarian enterprise. I also suggested every time as well that community Unity Garden humanitarian enterprises should be established as cooperative enterprises or businesses, where the idea is to set up the local community business as a co-op, so that the burden of running the business doesn't fall entirely on the shoulders of a single entrepreneur. Although different business models can be tried in order to determine what model might actually work best. Again, in the chat, some information about cooperative enterprises. So the INAB collaboratives are established at the local level, where we're leveraging our process of community engagement. The community engagement is done initially through the planting of the trees of peace and reconciliation, the planting ceremonies, followed by the ongoing community engagement and interaction through the regularly scheduled events throughout the year, including the coordinated Bubble Fun festivals and sports and dancing, which will be done in collaboration with the local INAB collaborative members. So the CTP program for twinning the community activities, such as community-oriented tree planting and/or local regenerative and public community infrastructure development projects or events, along with our Tea Diplomacy initiative, virtual community conversations on topics like peace, regeneration, reconciliation, and forgiveness. We also have a Dream Boards initiative done in collaboration with the C4 group members, along with identification of engagement with the local talent, including artists and creative people in the orange economy, for the purpose of promoting and showcasing their talent, but also especially as they promote the globalization of the global goals and the concept of a compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind through their art, especially during any one of our periodic sunlight spectacle or other edutainment events throughout the year. So any other programs or activities that may be developed as well in the context of the climate smart gardens and forests, some of which are delivered by FBSC in Oshawa, Ontario, the climate smart kitchens delivered by Kindred Kitchens in Toronto, the Wheel of Life Farms delivered by an organization called EPWT in Vietnam, and the Smart Learning Centers, or the Climate Smart Learning Centers as we call them, delivered by the PodNet Co-op. So I reinserted this slide for those who may not have seen this before. The local INAB collaboratives are now being expanded to try to include more critical partners, including the Bridges of Hope organization from Kenya, which would be focused on the training of these FFAGs in the various regenerative and climate smart business and infrastructure solutions, and possibly also BEMA International, the Black Emergency Managers Association, which would help to bring together first responders, such as police, firefighters, and paramedics from the local community, in order to help prepare the local entrepreneurs and enterprises and potentially position their businesses as hubs for taking action during emergencies or significant incidents that may happen in the community. I have also included a placeholder for a virtual cultural exchange office of UnityNet Africa and Diaspora, established for the purpose of mutually supporting each of our own local communities, including the FFHE and the rest of the local INAB collaborative members, wherever it is each of us live. So again, in the chat, you'll see a link to UnityNet VPA. So we now have done 3 Tea Diplomacy Initiative events, starting during the week of solidarity with the peoples struggling against racism and racial discrimination, which was from March 21st to 27th, 2022. We did the first one on Monday, March 21st, which was also the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which March 21st also happened to be World Poetry Day and the International Day of Forests. So at that first virtual tea diplomacy event, it included some conversations related to methods and processes of enabling and implementing solidarity with the people struggling against racism and racial discrimination, as well as discussing some of the local poets and poetry that have influenced local cultures in each respective community, wherever participants in the virtual discussions were living, along with discussing the importance of establishing these productive forests as biodiverse 3D polyculture food forests, established as Unity Forest Unity Gardens in all of our local communities, managed again in partnership with the local Indigenous peoples and all levels of government in every local community and country, as we call it, as an essential part of this process of practical reconciliation with all of the Indigenous peoples of the world, one country, one community, and one watershed at a time. So we did this event already, of course, and usually I do play the poem that was played during the first Tea Diplomacy event, but it's about 2.5 minutes long, and for the purpose of making my presentation shorter, I'll skip it this time. It was read by the poet Jack Black God, who is from a squatter camp, VVC, called Dipslut, north of Johannesburg in South Africa. But I will put into the chat some of the links for everybody to see these events that I referenced as well in my presentation. So we, as I said, we have now completed our first 3 virtual Tea Diplomacy Initiative events, where we ask leaders and other high-level decision makers to sit down virtually and have a cup of tea with some of the UnityNet members at the grassroots who are living in and doing work in the various marginalized communities around the world. The conversations that we asked our participants to discuss during these moderated virtual casual conversations between the sustainable development decision makers, the professionals, and the grassroots members who are doing some of the on-the-ground work in the various local communities of the Global Unity Network were related to those 3 themes that I mentioned, shown on the previous slide. I wanted to mention as well, all 3 events were co-hosted by UnityNet International, which is building our network on behalf of the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors and Activists, along with the Global Forum for Sustainable Rural Development and Global Peace Let's Talk. Again, for the same, rather than playing the music of Luvia M, a song called Thulan Lizio, I will just put the translated lyrics of the song into the chat The song is about 4.5 minutes long. It's our new theme song for the Tea Diplomacy Initiative. We will probably play it during our future special events as well, along with the poem by Jack Black God. However, I will not be playing these media files during these weekly IGU Summit events in order to save a little bit of time. So rather than just listing all of our partners during these tea diplomacy events, I'm going to show their logos for now. You can go to the original tea diplomacy event pages to find out more about them by going to the links in the chat. I do want to mention a few key partners, including Andrew Networks, We Energize Global Cooperation Turtle Island, Drawdown Markham, the Climate Change Solutions Education and Training Hub, the Indigenous Global Unity Network, Carbon Shot Earth, Sustainable Marketplace for Climate Solutions, Tods and Kids South Africa, Jofoa Uganda, and of course UnityNet International, our humanitarian enterprise and global sustainable and regenerative development corporation, along with the organizations that continues to support and promote the IGU Summit event, including the 5 Points Youth Foundation, EdFu Foundation, Future Lift Foundation, and Cycle of Success. So again, in the chat, I will put the links to these organizations so people can have that information at hand and be able to link through and find out more about that. So just give me a sec. I'll put these links into the chat. So we do want to do all 3 tea diplomacy events every year, including on May 21st, International Tea Day, and the World Day for Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development, which celebrates the richness of the world's cultures and the essential role of intercultural dialogue for achieving peace and sustainable development, as well as June 18th, which is Sustainable Astronomy Day, where we partner with a number of local UnityNet chapters and nodes, as well as outside organizations such as Plant for the Planet, the Plant-Based Climate Smart Food Network, the South Markham Food Security Network, and the Virtual Urban Food and Farming Network. Again, I will put many of these links into the chat for people to learn more about these important days. This takes me a second to put in some information for people to have access to the links. And we'll move on. So the second and third tea diplomacy events are now also complete, but it doesn't mean that we're finished our yearly events, by no means. We are also looking to develop more partnerships for our future events. So if you want to promote your local civil society organization, your NGO, or your humanitarian enterprise, don't hesitate to contact me so that UnityNet International, including the Africa and Diaspora Continental Network, can also promote the work you are doing to localize the global goals in your own local community as well. So in the chat, I put in links that you see on the screen. So I wanted to mention again the collaborative events that we're doing in 2022 related to the activities of UnityNet, which includes the Unity Gardens and the Unity Learning Networks and the Unity Eco Village and Unity Biodiversity Networks, along with many other critical networks, including the first globally coordinated Abraham Project Tree of Peace and Reconciliation Showcase Project for global cooperation. So this was delivered locally in multiple local communities by the members of the Global Unity Network on World Environment Day at the beginning of this month on Sunday, June 5th, 2022. So here in Canada, this was done again by the city of Mississauga in 2 different locations with a total of 11 trees planted. So the process of planting the trees of peace and reconciliation during these ceremonies allows us to begin establishing the global network of local INAB collaboratives, these interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaboratives that will lead the way at the local level everywhere around the world to undertaking the various globally coordinated events that we plan to do during the rest of the year and all subsequent years as well. Again, I put into the chat the Unity Network Africa and Diaspora Open Forum discussion group link, along with now the Mississauga INAB Collaborative Public Group and professional networks. So the important launch event is going to be followed by the globally coordinated Community Bubble Fun Festival events, designed to allow youth and families to have fun while they learn about the miraculous properties of bubbles, and especially how to use the bubbles to potentially allow humanity to more easily adapt and perhaps to thrive in a warming and changing global climate, especially in those areas of the world where the impacts of global warming and climate change will be felt the most severely, including here in Canada, especially in the north, as well as in mountainous areas, and of course in places like sub-Saharan Africa and South and Southeast Asia, and many more places around the world. So I wanted to remind people on the call that dates for the globally coordinated Community Bubble Fun Festivals are between August 9th, the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples, which is also the International Day of Solidarity with the Struggle of Women in South Africa and Namibia, also known as National Women's Day, as well to August 19th, 2022, which is World Humanitarian Day, with one day between those two dates being August 12th, 2022, which is International Youth Day, which opens us up to have these global Bubble Fun Festival dates, events on any date between August 9th and 19th, which is an 11-day window. I again put some links in the chat. So other events that we do include the Ubuntu Summit virtual event on October 4th, Global Cooperation Day, just as we did last year. This day is also the feast of St. Francis of Assisi and the Blessing of the Animals Day, which are both celebrated by the Catholic faith communities. I put into the chat a link to last year's Ubuntu Summit. One of our most important events of the year is the globally coordinated Climate Smart Youth Forum event. The event is designed to allow youth and families from around the world to learn about and discuss the various regenerative climate smart agriculture and food growing solutions that support achieving SDG 2 Zero Hunger and local circular regenerative economies that leave no one behind. People attending these hybrid events will learn about the Global Climate Smart Food Program and all of the various components of the ad hoc International Advisory Board process of localization of the global goals and the smart infrastructure, including the hands-on Unity Gardens and Virtual Interchange for Peace, VCN, where the combination of these two solutions allows local community INAB collaboratives, along with the local humanitarian entrepreneurs who are running the Unity Gardens as cooperatives, to gain access to all of the learning programs, the information, the education, the training, and all of the related support programs, including the financial support systems that we've been promoting through the Global Unity Network. So the empowerment programs will in turn allow all of our local community members and families to implement these local regenerative climate smart humanitarian infrastructure and enterprise solutions in the context of their own neighborhoods and communities, wherever they might live in the world. I wanted to mention, as just one last thing on this slide, we had decided last year that the primary host for the Global Climate Smart Youth Forum Week 2022 event would be Yeli International Nigeria, who will be working in partnership with UnityNet Nigeria, UnityNet Africa and Diaspora, as well as many of the rest of the members of the Global Unity Network as possible, who may wish to contribute to its success. So Yeli International is divided into two arms, the Youth Education and Leadership Initiative, with Yeli International being managed by a gentleman from UnityNet Nigeria named Dr. Amadou Monday Amadou. So again, in the chat, I put links to the relevant networks and that we have within the Global Unity Network, including the Unity Children and Youth International Network. So an optional event this year, which we can't be sure we can move ahead anymore in the world right away, especially since we're still in the process of establishing the INAB collaboratives and local teams in all the local communities, is the globally coordinated community tree planting event designed to establish the 3D polyculture food forests in the local communities everywhere around the world. The events are intended to be done in all of the local communities where any local UnityNet INAB collaboratives have been established, and where the members of the local community partnerships begin to establish these Unity Forest Unity Gardens designed to deliver the various global Unity learning programs, such as Twickenham EV Women Empowerment Programs, or the Global Unity 4K Club Humanitarian Entrepreneurship Learning Programs, for educating young people and their families and other community members about the various ways of achieving climate, food, and nutrition security goals. SDG 13, climate action, SDG 2, zero hunger, at minimum, in all of our local levels. Of course, we also want local community members to start implementing many of the other global goals through their community enterprises, because this is what humanitarian entrepreneurship is all about. It's about taking local action in our local communities for achieving the global goals, including, but not limited to, biodiversity action, or SDG 15, life on land goals, and gender equality action, SDG 5, clean water action, SDG 6, clean energy action, SDG 7, peace actions, SDG 16, and of course, no poverty actions, SDG number 1. With the local community members coming together through these INAB collaboratives in order to empower the local compassionate, collaborative, and passionate energy and the community humanitarian entrepreneurs who are dedicated to leaving no one behind in their local communities. I wanted to say that these last globally coordinated community Unity Forest, Unity Garden tree planting events could potentially be done during the proposed Climate Smart Youth Forum Week, which will likely also include a number of different hybrid in-person and virtual conference events, including the Global Climate Smart Youth Forum event on World Food Day, October 16th. So again, I put in a few links to a note of our network. I wanted to finally mention again the Unity Gardens of UnityNet do encourage co-learning and intercultural collaboration and what is called two-eyed seeing. Unity Gardens are places where children are taught that no one being is greater than the next, that we're part and parcel of the whole, that we're all equal, that each one of us has a responsibility to the balance of the system, and an understanding that all of the world's species, including all of our bio and eco kin, have contributions to make to the fabric of life on this planet. I'd also like to everyone to understand the two-eyed seeing, or etu optimum guiding principle for intercultural collaboration, which can be read at the websites that I will share in the chat. Again, I mentioned the UnityNet International Honey Project proposal that was made for the Russley Poverty Alleviation Pilot Projects, managed by the Russley Institute in collaboration with UnityNet International and the AHIABGA International Advisory Board. The Unity Honey Project is designed to demonstrate the production of certified climate smart honey produced from wildflowers that are grown on restored landscapes, such as former mine sites or other industrial or currently degraded lands, in order to produce abundance and revenues from what was once wasteland. So the Unity Honey Project is a bee honey harvesting project designed and intended to support the Science for Peace CSF program, the food certification system, and the demonstration of PAGI payments paid to the producers of certified products that are produced by female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs, especially in support of and in partnership with local Indigenous communities. The Unity Honey Project is designed as something that could potentially be universally applied in a number of different jurisdictions, no matter what country or continent or local community it is. So the project ties into the Abraham Project process of integrating the CTP program for twinning or thinning the local communities, and the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board globalization process that starts with the planting of the trees of peace and reconciliation, and the undertaking of the local community ceremonies that help to bring together all of the 7 local partners that wish to establish the local INAB collaboratives in each local community, and who will from that moment forward be dedicated to empowering the local FFAGs, who will work closely together with the members of the local INAB collaboratives. Again, in the chat are the links to the Unity Honey project. Before we sign off and invite our guest speaker to join us, I wanted to share with everyone today a message for our education system from a gentleman by the name of Radhanath Swami. I do want to play this video. It is about 5 minutes long, but it does contain many important messages about things like compassion, kindness, integrity, inner beauty, happiness, character, values, leadership and success, love and hope, and the understanding of the true meaning of success. So I will play the video now.
What is happening to our system of education? It is said 50 years ago, some of the major problems in schools included sticking chewing gum under tables, talking in class, and missing deadlines. Today, our schools face gun and knife crime, bullying, and dangerous levels of stress, drug abuse, depression, and suicide. To effectively address the serious challenges that our children face, we need to consider not only the problems with individual students, but the very system of education that they are subjected to. Academic intelligence may make a child successful in the world, but compassion will make them useful. When we teach values alongside academics, we will find that children will be much happier, more successful, and will develop into great leaders that will change the future of our world. The word education is derived from the Latin word educare, which means to lead out or to bring out from within. Education is actually about bringing out the unique individual potential of every child, teaching them how to approach the hurdles, shortcomings, and setbacks of life, while empowering them to be vehicles of love and hope for the world. It is said, if you lose your wealth, you lose nothing. If you lose your health, you lose something. But if you lose your character, you lose everything. Without stressing these truths, the opposite will be understood by default. That is, if you lose your character, you lose nothing. If you lose your health, you lose something. If you lose your wealth, you lose everything. It should be a top priority of our education system to ensure that our children get this right. Imagine an education system where children are taught that the only time we should look down on someone is if we can help them up. Imagine a system where children are taught to judge beauty by what is within people's heart, not by their physical appearance. Imagine a system where character is given as much importance as competence, where children are taught that helping 1 billion people is even more valuable than being a billionaire, where as well as learning to raise their standard of living, they are also taught to increase their standard of giving, where children are taught to measure their success by how happy and fulfilled they are, and not how many letters they have after their names. An education system where developing intelligence goes hand in hand with developing compassion. Imagine if as well as learning the history of our world, they are given the skills to change the future of it. Imagine if as well as learning to navigate the world, they learn how to navigate their own minds. This is not an imagination. It is possible if we genuinely begin to value kindness over competence, character over success, and integrity above money. And in this way, change the system in which our children grow and learn.
So this, I find, is a very important video to play during these events. I think I wanted to mention as well that Dr. Amadou Monday Amadou, before, he also reminded us recently that the process of change is like a revival, and together we can indeed make the world a better place, and that positive change begins with you and I, and that everyone can start something, even if it's small, and we'll still be able to create the kind of change the world needs. If each one helps one as the world goes around, it can be made free from social problems. So we in the Global Unity Network, through UnityNet International, are promoting the humanitarian entrepreneurship and a future regenerative economy, which encompasses the concept of a collaborative entrepreneurship, a collaborative economy, and collaborative businesses. Cooperatives and such types of businesses are part of that. So the empowerment networks that we're building in all of our local communities through the ceremonies of the planting of the trees of peace and reconciliation and the raising of the Indigenous unity flags are intended to support and empower such types of local community cooperative enterprises and the FFHE who wish to establish and operate them. So we believe that a productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy is likely to be far more positive in terms of outcomes for far more people, far faster than a purely competitive economy as it exists today. Of course, to keep prices down, there needs to be some competition within sectors, especially for those who are providing the same or similar goods or services in the same community. But we do encourage co-opetition rather than pure competition, which has this winner takes all mentality. Rather, we want our members to support each other's mutual success so that no one is left behind. We call this Ubuntu in business. So again, I'd share in the chat the link to the We Energize Global Operation Turtle Island International Civil Society Organization, which is teaching life value, peace education. So in summary, the Global Unity Network, UnityNet, UNAD, and Uni is an empowerment network. We are globally connecting community empowerment networks of local networks. Uni and UNAD are here to help all of our members because we want the local cooperative humanitarian enterprises to thrive. This means the Unity Gardens that our female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs secure and develop should be supported by all of the members and organizations who are part of the local INAP collaboratives, along with the rest of the people and organizations that are members of the global network. We also want our people to get to the table, to show up to the meetings where decisions are being made. This is what UnityNet is also about. So it's being created so we have representation at every one of the meetings where decisions are being made, especially every time there's a discussion about funding. Will be recognized for our participation. As one of the members we have in our network, Prophet Cox, and as well our host Andrew likes to say, if you're not at the table, you are on the menu. So we also like to help those who are the most marginalized people in our network get trained and empowered so they can also be with us at these meetings and discussions about funding. This means the youth, the elders, the rural, the homeless, and the refugees, because it's they who should be sitting and sharing their voice using the language of holistic, collaborative, regenerative development, localized to empower the people in their own local communities, especially on behalf of others who have been marginalized. So our network allows us to disseminate the information and invitations to the various events so that everyone in our network has the opportunity to participate and find a seat at these tables. but they must be empowered and they must have the confidence and they must choose to sit down at those meetings. So in connection with our global objectives, these are the simple global UnityNet values. We want to be continuously promoted alongside the humanitarian entrepreneurship. In other words, like value peace education. What I also wanted to mention about the Global Unity Network, UnityNet, and our members is that we support people, our humanitarian entrepreneur members and their communities in all our relations, not corporations or faceless entities that lack empathetic souls. And as I noted recently in one of our UnityNet discussions, we will make it happen, I'm sure, because the next generation of children is counting on us. We can't deny them a fulfilling life of plenty if we use up the earth and all of what we have for this generation and for ourselves, instead of thinking of them and their future. Because I cannot imagine or believe that we humans are really that selfish. It seems to be a rather absurd notion. So finally, I wanted to mention the Energem University Sustainable Planet platform, which is unfortunately still under development, but Sustainable Planet intends to teach values alongside academics, skills, and collaboration, empowering young people to change the world through love and compassion and practical skills in regenerative design. Importantly, however, through the Global Unity Network that we're building is being done on the backbone of We Energem Global Cooperation Turtle Island and our original partnership between We the World, Energem University, and Global Cooperation Day. We are doing in Energem University in particular, and will be taught through the learning programs delivered through the Global Unity Network and our Unity Gardens, are the concepts of regenerative design as a professional discipline. This means applied life value peace education, which above all else is a compassionate philosophy and matters as much as, if not more, than the technical skills. Because this is about changing the very system of education, because we know that when we teach values alongside academics, we will find that children and adults will be much happier, more successful, and will develop into great leaders. These leaders will change the future of the world for the better if we could just find a way to bring out the unique talents and potential of each and every child, while we empower them to become vehicles of love, because love will always conquer hate. And I put, again, some links to some new networks that we're creating as well. Sorry. Our primary tool is partnerships for the goals we set for ourselves as humans, where the lessons are learned through the delivery of embedded understanding of Ubuntu, as shown to our youth by our own example, where we're delivering the learning by using the tools of mentorship and humanitarian entrepreneurship. We are a global collaboration of people who are dedicated to deploying the local solutions for achieving a productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. So we have a big mandate for a better future by mentoring the next generation of young leaders. We end today's introduction, I wanted to mention as well, one of the reasons for doing all of this work, having our events and building our network of networks, this UnityNet, is so that we can begin assembling all of the experts who are skilled in implementing the local solutions for achieving a productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. Because the UnityNet International and UNAD, we understand that it's only through partnerships as per SDG 17 that we'll be able to succeed. So we are also doing our work in the spirit of Ubuntu, because we can only have about 7.5 years until 2030, at the end of the period of the so-called SDGs. And yet all indications are that we are in a worse situation globally than we were at the start of 2015, when the SDGs began. So food insecurity globally is on the rise. It's not getting better. Carbon emissions are rising. Global warming, climate change is not going away. inflation is happening around the world, along with the wars and droughts and continuing soil degradation and the loss of habitats and biodiversity. So what can we do? We need to come together, all the people of the earth who care about our children's future and the next generations, and create the biggest network in the world of regenerative development experts who are skilled at implementing these local solutions for achieving this productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. So this is the ultimate purpose of UnityNet, our global Unity network, a network of people and organizations supporting the ad hoc International Advisory Board process of globalization of the global goals. So that are the links to the Global Partnership for Regenerative Development. So I'd like to ask, as we end this opening introduction, that everybody put their contact information into the chat so that others on the call will have your contact information, especially if you are new to the IGU Summit and the Global Unity Network. Include your name, your organization, your contact information, and email, WhatsApp, social media, websites, as you wish. So I do want to start by recognizing the people that came on the call with us and stayed with us, especially starting with the women. And if we have our guest speaker, he can come on now with us. Thank you, Andrew, for that.